Okay guys, it's exactly day 5. We are back in the bean field in the bottom here. And we have beans coming through the soil. And so some of them are just emerging. And some of them are already starting to unfurl their first leaves there. And then we have everything from that to what's happening right here, which is a bean that for whatever reason looks like he has some disease on his hook, has a brown spot on his hook there. He may not be coming. And then we have beans that are in the hook stage. That other cotyledon broke off when I handled him, pulled him out of the soil. But he has a weakness in his cotyledon there. Has a weakness in him. So anyway, I want to talk about, we're probably, I don't know, 10 to 15% emerged. The weed density is very, very respectable. We have a morning glory there, and we have a cocoa bird just popping through right there. But those two are in the row. They'll be dead the first time you cultivate. Down in the row, we're seeing just a few grasses, very, very, very few. So that row there has quite a bit better emergence. So what's going on with emergence is we're not, the dry weather is not done with us yet. We missed those chances of rain. Field is still pretty dry, but since I did stick the beans in a hair deeper, that will make the emergence a little bit more uneven, because you know there's just differences in the texture and how they packed into the soil, what have you. But the big thing we got going on here is that we've had 3 days now over 95 degrees, and today the temperature hit 100 degrees. And so that is not desirable for soybeans. Their optimum germination is in that, I think, the 80s up to about 90 degrees. And then after that, since this, trying to think of the technical term. I can't remember the technical term right off there, but in the hook stage, this is basically a water pump. See how tight it is, and how if we squeeze it, it's basically what do they call that? They call that the radical, maybe. When it's basically a water pump, and it's just full of moisture. But heat does funny things to moisture. And so there is a little bit of stress going on with the heat. They are saying that we have one more hot day tomorrow around 95, 96, but then after that we're going to drop back into the 80s for 5 days. And so the beans will just keep trucking along. When I did dig down there, you know, you're thankful for bottom ground, but when I did dig down in that spot, we do have good moisture there. Good moisture. I don't know if it's enough to make a mud ball. Yeah, it's enough to make a mud ball. So we have enough moisture down underneath to bring the beans. It's just the weather is pretty stressful on the little fellers. There's the row where I double planted right here on the edge. The row that I double planted, they've emerged, but then that's because there's close to 400,000 seeds per acre on that row that's double planted. But they're coming. They're just having a hard time in this heat. Anyway, there's a small chance of rain tomorrow night, but you know, it was a pretty good chance. Now they're calling that chance down. And so it's looking like the rotary hoe probably here we'll give the beans probably at about day 7. They'll be fully through, and I will probably wait just a little bit, not wanting to stress them. Probably be day 8 before we'll get back out here and take another look at this field. But we're going to get busy now because I think the wheat's about ready to go, and so I'm going to need to spend several days cutting wheat, and then hopefully the next time you see me, maybe we'll have the rotary hoe out here running, and we'll have a field that's a lot greener. Thanks, guys. Okay, guys, we're up on the hill. I didn't want to come up on the hill because the wind might bother us. These beans here have one more day on the beans in the bottom. So we're almost to day 6 on them. You can row these now real good. They're probably about 60-65% through the soil. But the thing that I forgot to tell you guys, very important, you need to plant into moisture. If it is your intention to rotary hoe on a schedule and have a degree of uniformity and to cultivate on a schedule, you know, I keep talking about my day count, that, you know, I'm trying to cultivate at my first pass somewhere between day 14, 15, 16, or 17. Rotary hoe, if you're going to do it, you're going to be in that day 8 to day 12 window. So it's very important that you plant into moisture, and thus that you plant a hair deeper. These beans, I was a hair deeper than I like to plant them, but because of this crazy weather and this 95+ degree heat that we're having, the emergence is going to be a little bit delayed, but the beans will come. And so one of the cardinal rules of organic farming is you must plant into moisture. Planting into moisture here, that little bit deeper on this clay soil, is hurting my emergence a little bit. But in the long run, it will allow me to cultivate uniformly and to rotary hoe uniformly and to manage my weed control stuff uniformly. And that is critical. So the part of competition, the crop has to be coming as soon as you put it in the soil to compete with weeds, but you gotta plant into moisture. And so I was watching the weather last week when I was making these planting decisions, and I saw the heat. I also saw chances of rain. If the ground was entirely wet and the subsoil was saturated and you were in a wet environment, you know, you could almost lay these beans on the soil surface and they would pop through. But with what we had this year, I stuck them in a little bit deeper. They're in moisture. Because of that, I'm seeing some half cotyledons. I'm seeing some, you know, some damage on the beans. It's hard for the boys. And I planted the soil wet. Remember, on this field here, I was, the rain came Friday night and I was planting it Monday evening. And so 3 days after the rain, I was planting. After an inch and a half of rain, I was planting the ground. And so the ground was just a hair wet. That strategy has worked for me on hill ground. On the bottom ground, I planted the hill ground first, the bottom ground second. But as we got further and further from that rain event, I was bumping the beans a 1/4 inch deeper a day. And the reason for that is you have to get those beans into moisture. Now, it turns out that I did make a good decision because the heat has been ferocious and the rain chances have missed us. And so this field may look a little bit, you know, it's not the ideal. The other day, you know, in my first video, I was talking about wanting to be able to row the beans at day 5. Well, we're probably, because of my depth and because of the severe heat, we're probably about a day behind where I want to be. The good news is since it hasn't rained and since there wasn't excess moisture to begin with, we don't have a lot of weeds to compete with. So in that circumstance, and in pretty much all circumstances, it's important that you plant into moisture. I'll give you guys a little shot of the sunset and the wheat on the top of the hill there. That's what we'll be working on for the next few days. So thanks, guys.